Alright, so picture this. It's County Fermanagh, a patch of borderland that's so quiet you can literally hear a cow sneeze 2 fields away. We're talking stone walls, mist over the hills, and that eternal smell of turf fires. The kind of place where you'd think the craziest thing to happen is someone's tractor breaking down on a Monday. Now meet Kevin Lunney, mid-50s, family man, hard-working, a business brain with country roots. He's the chief operating officer, yeah, basically the guy running the show at Quinn Industrial Holdings, or as people in the region still call it, the Quinn Group. This company isn't some random small town gig. We're talking about a cross-border industrial empire worth hundreds of millions, born out of the old Sion Quinn business dynasty. And if you know Irish business history, that name carries weight. It's the rags to riches story, a local billionaire who built an empire out of gravel and cement, then lost it all after the financial crash. And what came next? Lawsuits, accusations, rage. The fallout split the community right down the middle. Neighbors stopped talking, old friends turned into enemies, and whispers of revenge started floating around. Now imagine being Kevin Lunney, the guy now helping run that same company, trying to rebuild it, keep it alive, and avoid stepping on the wrong toes in a region still emotionally attached to the Quinn name. By 2019, the tension had been simmering for years. People in the company were getting threats, cars torched, homes vandalized, anonymous calls in the middle of the night. But nobody thought it would go this far. Not until that one autumn evening when the quiet borderland turned into the setting of one of Ireland's most brutal modern crimes. It's a Tuesday evening, 17th September 2019. Kevin's heading home after work, same route he's driven 100 times. The man's probably thinking about dinner, maybe a cup of tea, nothing dramatic. But as he turns up the quiet lane toward his house near Derrylin, it happens. A silver BMW suddenly blocks the path. He barely has time to react before it slams backward into his Land Cruiser. His heart probably hits the roof. He tries to lock the door's instincts, but they're already smashing through the glass. They drag him out. Not a word, just force, masks, gloves. The kind of cold efficiency that tells you this isn't random. He's bundled into the boot of a black Audi, and before he can process what's happening, the smell of smoke fills the air. They set his own car and the BMW on fire. Clean up, border style. The car jolts forward. He's in darkness, bouncing around the boot, no clue where he's going. Every sound, every turn feels like the last. Hours later, the Audi crosses into County Cavan. They stop at an isolated farmyard middle of nowhere. There's a horse box, ropes, tools. Not exactly a place you'd hope to end up after work. That's when it starts. They drag him out again, tie him, demand to know about his company, about resigning. It's not about money, it's about control. You're going to step down, one of them says, and he knows this isn't a bluff. No guards in sight, no neighbors, no witnesses, just the dark countryside and men who've planned this for weeks. And right there in that quiet corner of Ireland, business rivalry turns into something straight out of a nightmare. Okay, deep breath, because this part right here, it's not a movie, it's real life. And it's the part everyone in Ireland still talks about with that long pause. You know, the kind when words just aren't enough. So Kevin's dragged into that old farmyard. The place smells like rust and diesel. He's surrounded by men in dark clothes. He doesn't know who they are, but he knows they've done this before. No shouting, no chaos, just quiet cruelty, the kind that makes it worse. They tie him up and start asking questions about the company Quinn Industrial Holdings, the lawsuits, the leadership. But it's not an interview, it's punishment. One of them tells him he's gotta learn a lesson. Then they start. They pour bleach over his hands and cuts. A sting beyond pain. They slice his face, small cuts controlled like they're proving a point. And then his leg. They hit it so hard the bone snaps. Then again another break. One of them says, "Did that snap?" That's not a line from a script. That's what was said in real life in that yard. Kevin's lying there gasping, every nerve on fire. And then one of the attackers takes out a knife, a Stanley knife, and carves 3 letters into his chest. QIH, the initials of the very company he worked for. That's not torture anymore, that's branding. Literal branding. They tell him, "You'll step down, you'll quit." He can barely breathe, but he knows what they're doing. This isn't about hurting him, it's about sending a message to everyone else. When they're done, they drag him out again. They strip him down to his boxers, dump him on a country road in the dark. It's cold, he's bleeding, he's miles from anywhere. He thinks he's finished, but something in him refuses to quit. He crawls. Half naked, broken, blind with pain, he drags himself along the tarmac inch by inch until he sees headlights in the distance. A farmer in a tractor spots him, stops, and realizes what he's looking at: a man who's just survived one of the most horrific kidnappings in Irish history. That's how Kevin Lunney lived. And right there on that lonely border road, a corporate feud turned into a national headline. Here's the part that makes everyone scratch their head. Why on earth did this happen? Who wakes up one morning and says, "You know what would solve a business disagreement? Kidnapping the chief operating officer." But to understand the why, you've got to understand the mess behind the company Quinn Industrial Holdings. So, quick recap for anyone not from Ireland. Back in the day, there was this guy named Sion Quinn. Big name, built an empire from the ground up: cement, insurance, glass, the works. The guy was the richest man in Ireland before the crash. But when the economy tanked, so did the empire. The banks took over, new investors moved in, and Quinn the man lost control of his own company. Now here's where it gets spicy. The people running the company after the takeover, including Kevin Lunney, were seen by some locals as traitors. They were accused of turning their backs on Quinn, which, if you lived in that area, felt personal. Quinn had given jobs to entire families. When he fell, a lot of people fell with him. So yeah, the resentment was real. By the time Kevin took his position as chief operating officer, there'd already been years of tension. Homes vandalized, cars burned, threats sent by text and mail. One director's house even had paint thrown across the front door. Another had a car set alight in the middle of the night. Then comes the whisper campaign stuff like, "Tell them to step down or else." And in September 2019, the "or else" finally showed up. The attackers told Kevin straight up, "You're going to resign from QIH. You'll stop the legal fights north and south of the border." That was the message, and they made sure the whole country would hear it loud and clear. This wasn't gangland, it wasn't about cash or ransom. This was corporate intimidation taken to a medieval level. They wanted to send a warning to everyone in that company: keep your mouth shut, step aside, or next time it'll be worse. So yeah, it wasn't just violence for the sake of it. It was strategy, old school revenge dressed up as business politics. Alright, so after the whole country nearly choked on its tea hearing what happened to Kevin Lunney, the investigation went full throttle. And when the guards get involved in something like this, especially when it crosses the border, you know it's going to turn into a full-on detective movie. They had burned out cars, CCTV trails, phone records pinging across counties, and a crime scene that looked like a horror set. But the guards were determined to trace every breadcrumb back to whoever was behind this madness. And they did. One of the key names that popped up early was Cyril McGuinness, better known locally as Dublin Jimmy. Yeah, I know, classic Irish nickname energy. Now, Dublin Jimmy had a reputation that would make a Netflix villain jealous: smuggling, intimidation, gang connections, the works. But before he could even stand trial, Dublin Jimmy died during a police raid in England in November 2019. Call it karma, call it bad luck. Either way, the supposed ringleader was gone. Still, the story didn't end there. The guards kept digging, and more names came up: Alan O'Brien, Darren Redmond, and one man whose name couldn't be published for legal reasons, identified only as YZ. When they were hauled into court, they didn't look like some slick movie criminals, more like 3 guys who took corporate restructuring way too literally. The trial kicked off in Dublin's Special Criminal Court. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, detectives, you could feel the tension. Kevin himself testified, walking everyone through what happened calmly, bravely, every detail. The judge described his evidence as measured and dignified, which is just polite Irish legal talk for, how is this man still standing? The prosecution laid it all out: the phone records, the vehicle movements, the DNA traces, the video footage from border cameras, every piece fit together like an awful puzzle. And after weeks of testimony, the verdict came down. YZ, the mystery man, got 30 years. Alan O'Brien got 25 years. Darren Redmond got 18 years, with the last 3 suspended. The judge didn't sugarcoat it. He called it a callous and vicious assault, part of a campaign of terrorization. And that's exactly what it was: a campaign. A long, cold plan to scare a man out of his job. Not some drunken brawl. Not a spur-of-the-moment rage. This was organized, deliberate, and almost cinematic in how twisted it got. After the verdict, Kevin thanked the investigators, the guards, and the public for their support, but he also said something that hit hard. The journey to full accountability is not complete. Translation: the people who gave the orders, the brains behind the brutality, they were still out there. So yeah, the attackers went to prison, but the real puppet masters, still shadows on the border. So yeah, Kevin survived. But when you survive something like that, normal doesn't really exist anymore. Physically, he recovered enough to walk, to work, to live. But the scars, man, they tell their own story. Every time he looks down at his chest, those 3 letters QIH are still there, like a cruel tattoo he never asked for. And emotionally, that's the kind of thing that doesn't leave. Imagine driving home after that. Every sound behind you, a car door, a crunch of gravel, suddenly feels like it could all start again. Yet somehow he went back to work. Not just for himself, but for the people in that community who refused to let fear win. Because let's be honest, this wasn't just about one man. This shook the entire border region. In the months after the attack, the company had to tighten security cameras, patrols, silent alarms. Directors got personal protection, and the government even set up a special cross-border policing group between the guards and the PSNI to deal with intimidation around the company. When Ireland and Northern Ireland are coordinating this tightly, you know it's serious. People started asking the big question: how does something like this even happen in modern Ireland? We're supposed to be past the days of back road justice and masked men. But this dragged the country right back into that old fear where silence keeps you safe and speaking up gets you hurt. And still, years later, there's this uncomfortable truth: the full picture isn't finished. The ones who planned it, funded it, pushed it, the businessmen in the shadows, many of them never faced a courtroom. That's the haunting part. Kevin once said he just wanted peace for himself and for his family. But peace doesn't come easy when you've been carved, broken, and dumped on the side of a dark road. It's not just the attack that scars you, it's knowing that some of the people responsible might still be walking free. So yeah, Ireland likes to think of itself as a modern, safe place to do business. But this case ripped off the mask showed how quickly things can turn ugly when money, power, and loyalty mix. Because when boardroom drama turns into backyard brutality, the line between corporate rivalry and organized crime gets real blurry. So here we are. A quiet border village, a man just doing his job, and a group of people who decided business politics weren't dramatic enough unless someone got tortured. It sounds like a crime thriller, but nope, this was real life in modern Ireland. Kevin Lunney didn't die that night, but something definitely did: the illusion that power struggles in Ireland always stay civilized. Here's the part that gets you. The company he was forced to quit, Quinn Industrial Holdings, now rebranded as Manock, it's still up and running, still producing, still making money. The economy moved on. People went back to work. Headlines faded. But the scars, they never left. And the masterminds, the ones who ordered it, they're like ghosts. Everyone in the border counties whispers the same thing: We know who's behind it. But proving it, that's another story. And in Ireland, silence can be its own kind of armor. The irony is brutal. Kevin was attacked because someone thought fear would make him give up. Instead, it made him stronger, a living, breathing reminder that no matter how dark it gets, survival is the ultimate revenge. But still, the whole thing leaves a taste that won't go away. Because if a well-known businessman in a quiet corner of Ireland can be dragged, beaten, and branded like cattle, what chance does anyone else have when the wrong people get angry? So next time you're driving down a lonely country lane and you see the hedges closing in, that mist hanging low, remember this story. Because somewhere out there between Fermanagh and Cavan, a road still remembers what happened. A man crawled across it, bleeding, broken, but alive. And his name was Kevin Lunney. Ireland called it a crime. But really, it was a warning, a reminder that behind the charm and calm of the countryside, power still has teeth. And that's the story of the night Irish business got too personal. And that's the story, folks. The night Irish business went full horror movie. It's one of those cases that makes you look at your boss a little differently, right? Like, maybe keep that email polite. But seriously, think about it. All this because of a corporate feud. A man gets kidnapped, tortured, branded, all because some people couldn't let go of a grudge over a company name. It's insane. And it makes you wonder if this can happen in quiet rural Ireland, what's really going on behind the polished doors of big business. Like how many stories never make it to the news because people are too scared to talk. So yeah, drop a comment below. Would you have gone back to that job after what happened to Kevin Lunney? Or would you have packed up, moved away and said, no thanks, I'm done with corporate life? Either way, this case proves one thing: sometimes the most dangerous boardrooms are the ones with no walls.